Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at setting up our gear cut feature within our Link G5 and G4X programming based around a clutch switch. So this is going to be in a situation where you want to initiate a gear cut, which is also known as flat shift, allows you on a synchro transmission or a dog box transmission to go full throttle when you want to go ahead and make a gear change. So this unloads the transmission so it doesn't stress things out as much, and then it allows you to make that gear change more cleanly at full throttle. This is super important on a turbocharged engine because we can definitely keep up on boost on a gear shift. It's not so critical or important on a naturally aspirated engine or a supercharger, but on a turbocharged engine, this is definitely going to make or break a lot of times on a big turbo setup going down the quarter mile. Let's go and take a look at how to set this up. It's actually fairly simple. We need to go in and first configure a clutch switch and then configure all of the gear cut settings so it works based on a clutch switch. So the gear cut feature can actually work based on paddle shifts. It can be based on strain gauge or on a clutch sensor, clutch switch. We need to definitely make sure we're configuring this correctly so that the feature is going to work as intended. So meaning when we clutch in a certain conditions, it's going to allow that switch to initiate and allow the gear cut to happen and allow us to do that full throttle shifting. So let's go in and configure some few things. Let's take a look at a very most basic details, which is configuring our clutch switch first. We're going to move here from our fuel page and jump over to our digital input page. Now under digital inputs, we're looking for our clutch switch right here. So on my vehicle that I'm working with, I have a clutch switch wired in. I'm using the OEM factory clutch switch, and it's going to be, actually there's two clutch switches on the car. There's one for cruise control, and then there's the other one that's going to be for the safety feature for starting. I'm using the cruise control clutch switch because that's going to be what's at the very beginning of the clutch pedal travel. That's going to go as soon as I touch the pedal, it's going to engage that switch. I'm choosing this specifically so the cut happens as soon as the pedal is depressed at all. I don't want to wait towards the end of the clutch pedal travel to initiate the clutch switch to initiate the gear cut, because by then we're going to lose a bunch of time based on us moving our leg in mechanically and actually clutching in. So we want typically to have a clutch switch set up for a gear cut like this based on the beginning of the pedal travel. And if you have a cruise control OEM switch available, that's what I recommend to use. So I'm using that. I've rewired the clutch switch, and I'm taking one leg of the clutch switch and it's going to chassis ground. The other leg of the clutch switch is going into the digital input 3. So every time I'm clutching in, I'm grounding my digital input 3 pin. So I need to go and set up the conditions here accordingly, and then we can test this out and make sure this actually functions. Let's see how we can do this here. So we're going to go into our clutch switch. We're going to go to our source. I've wired mine to digital 3, but you do have a lot of other options here where you could wire it into. Again, I'm using a digital input. That's traditionally what I stick to for wiring a clutch switch. So we'll grab digital 3. Now, because I've set the wiring so that we're grounding the digital input 3 pin, we need to go in and set up our pull-up resistor and our active state in a specific fashion. So when we're grounding the pin, we'll use the pull-up resistor on to complete the circuit. Then the active state will be set to low. This sets up the link to recognize a ground pulse or a ground to that specific pin that we're pointing to, digital 3. If I wired the clutch switch so that it was sending 12 volt in, so one leg of the switch goes to 12 volt power, the other leg of the switch is going to the digital 3. When I clutch in, it'll go ahead and send 12 volt to the pin. In that orientation, the pull-up resistor would be off, and then the active state would be high. So we want to make sure we're setting this correctly, and then we can test it to verify that it is functioning as expected. We're going to find here that we have our digital 3 input latch. We want to keep this off. This will turn a momentary type of condition into a latched function. This is not useful for a clutch switch, but they leave that programming language in there, so we're going to make sure that this is off. We're going to go here to tuning, and we're going to go to our runtime values, and we're going to jump in here to digital, and we want to take a look here at our clutch status. So right now, I am not on the clutch at all. So what I want to do here is actually depress the clutch and see if it's going to activate. And again, I'm using the top clutch switch for the cruise control. So as soon as I touch that pedal, it should initiate here. So as soon as I go ahead and hit the pedal, we can see it's going to active. And then if I come off the pedal all the way, it becomes inactive. So we know that it works. We know that the logic here is programmed correctly. So now we can move forward going into our gear cut settings and configuring everything based around the clutch switch. So let's go ahead and close this real quick. And let's take a look here at our gear cut settings so that we can get this configured correctly. What we're going to do here is use our right arrow, and we're going to go over here to G cut or gear cut. Now, there's a lot of things to program in this window. We don't need to worry about majority of it. We can keep things extremely simple if we want to do just a flat shift based around a clutch switch. There's a ton of programming logic in here, and that's all based around paddle shifting and strain gauge inputs, doing throttle blipping based on, let's say, downshifting. We're not worried about any of this. All we're going to be worried about is initiating a cut based on when we depress that clutch switch or depress the clutch at higher RPM and at higher throttle angles. So this allows us to do the full throttle shifting. Let's go in here and turn things on and take a look at how this is going to be set up. So we're going to go here into our start shift mode. We can see it's currently set to off. We're going to go ahead, double click here, and this allows us to choose how we're setting up our gear cut feature. So digital input, that's going to be used specifically for a clutch switch that we're dealing with here. So we're going to choose this option, but we do have other options here: gear lever force sequential, gear lever force H pattern. These two are used when we're talking about a strain gauge. We also have gear barrel position. If we have a gear barrel position sensor, we would choose this option. That's for sequential. That's specific to the transmission. And then digital paddle shift. This is for paddles if you're doing upshifting, downshifting with a sequential. In this case, we just need digital input. So it's pretty simple for what we want to choose here and click OK. Now we have a lot of things to configure. So let's talk about all of our settings here. The end shift mode here, we can see it's set up on time. We can do digital input or gear barrel position. Now time is going to specify once we initiate the digital input here, it's going to be keeping the cut on for a specified period of time, which is called out here for the main shift duration. We don't want that. We only want the cut active as long as the clutch switch is enabled. So we actually want to choose here digital input. So this is saying that when the digital input, the clutch switch is triggered, that's when we want to have the shift cut feature on. And as soon as we deactivate it, we want things to turn off. So it's very simple. This is the option we want to choose here. Gear barrel position is also another option. Again, we're not working with that. We're doing our digital input. Let's click OK here. Now you can notice the main shift duration table.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here. And you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.